Hey guys, Dane here. In this video, I show you how to change out old copper and galvanized steel plumbing for a bath and shower using PEX pipes and Sharkbite connectors.
DIY Day.
First thing we'll want to do is separate the old system from the copper plumbing. Before we do that, we need to find our main water shutoff valve and close that completely. Yours may have a lever that just needs a quarter turn to close it. Then drain your pipes using a water outlet that has the lowest point. Luckily, I have a sink in my basement, so I opened up both the cold and hot water valves. This will relieve the pressure on the pipes we'll be cutting, preventing a pretty bad leak. With the pipes drained, we can now cut the copper supply lines. For the left line, I used a mini copper tube cutter. This cutter has a dial which tightens the blade. So first you want to clamp it to the pipe tight enough that it can still rotate. Normally, you'd rotate the cutter completely around the pipe once, then tighten it, and do it again, repeating this process until the pipes cut clean through. I had to improvise with another pipe in my way, cutting it as much as possible one way, then flipping the tool and cutting the rest. Another way to cut copper tubing is with a hacksaw, which doesn't do as clean of a cut and is more difficult to do if cut straight across. But unfortunately, I didn't have much choice with this right one touching a wall stud. Once the copper pipes were cut, it was a simple matter of disconnecting the bracket holding the shower fixture in place. If your system consists of galvanized pipe like this one, just throw it away because it will rust over time. We'll then want to take a metal file and smooth out the edges of the copper cuts so that they don't damage the insides of the Sharkbite connectors. If you need to have the water on before you're ready to install the rest of the system, get yourself some Sharkbite end caps and shove them on as far as they'll go. If you are able to finish this in one sitting without the need of water throughout the house, you can skip this step. Now it's time to prepare the valve. There should be markings on both the valve and its plaster guard indicating how it should be oriented when installed. Make sure you have a board in place between studs for the valve to mount to. It should be placed so that the center of the valve will be 30 inches up from the tub floor, and the depth of the center of the shower outlet is 1.5 to 2.5 inches back from the finished wall when mounted. Refer to your manual for recommended depth because it may vary depending on your valve. I would recommend using a 2x4 for a more solid and stable mount. Since this pipe is in the way in my wall for the depth I need to be at, I screwed together two 1x4s to ensure my valve has a more secure mount behind it. I used a level to mark these guidelines on the board for where the valve will sit. Now we can remove the plaster guard to get an idea of where all the connectors will go. I left the plastic cover to help avoid marking and damaging the valve body. The left copper pipe is almost directly down from the left connection on the valve, so I'm using a Sharkbite elbow with a female pipe thread on this side. I'll then use a Sharkbite coupling, which has push-to-connect ends on both sides, to connect the copper pipe to PEX pipe, which will then connect to the push-to-connect part of the elbow on the valve. I'll also use a Sharkbite coupling on the right copper pipe that will connect by PEX to a Sharkbite elbow that has push-to-connects on both ends, which will then connect by PEX to a Sharkbite adapter with a female pipe thread for connecting to the right side of the valve. For the bottom threaded pipe of the valve, we'll use a brass female coupling to connect a 5-inch brass pipe nipple, as well as a brass elbow with female ends. This will create the connection for the tub faucet, making it about the recommended 8 inches down from the center of the valve. Now we can assemble all the valve's connectors, including a Sharkbite female adapter on the top for the shower. An important step for these connectors is wrapping any threading with thread sealing tape, also known as Teflon tape or plumber's tape. The proper wrapping technique for plumber's tape is to start at the base and wrap clockwise while facing the opening of the threaded pipe, slowly working your way out towards the open end and wrapping the end at least 3 times. Clockwise wrap starting at the base will help the connecting thread to go on smoothly without causing the tape to bunch up or tear and compromise the seal. For threading on the connectors, we'll tighten them by hand as much as we can, then use flat, groove joint pliers to tighten them as tight as possible in order to get a solid seal. With the elbow connector, we need to make sure it's facing downward. So if you tighten it to the point that it's facing the right direction, but it feels as though it could still tighten further pretty easily, you want to do another rotation. This will most likely require using a pipe wrench in order to get better leverage and a tight enough grip on the connector. If this doesn't work, you could try removing the connector and all the plumber's tape and retaping the thread, this time wrapping it a few more times to get a thicker seal and require less threading of the elbow connector to get it tight.
When connecting the pipe nipple, you want to use a pipe wrench to get a better grip on the pipe itself in order to turn it nice and tight.
To get the elbow connecting the pipe nipple oriented the correct way, facing directly forward, we'll need a second pipe wrench. This wrench will give us a solid grip on the pipe, as well as extra leverage when tightening the elbow with the other wrench. The length of tube that goes into these half-inch regular Sharkbite fittings is 15/16 inch. So I measured the length from the end to get an idea of how far into the fitting the PEX will go. I then place the valve where it'll mount and use that spot of the fitting to make a mark. The length of tube that goes into these half-inch Sharkbite max fitting ends is 1 inch. So after measuring to find out that this groove is right at 1 inch, I use it to make another mark where this elbow will sit. I then measure the distance between these marks for the length of the connecting PEX pipe. Typically, the right side would be cold water, but the hot and cold are switched because it's connected to another shower system on the other side, which is oriented the right way. So I'll be using red PEX pipe to indicate the hot supply line. If you don't get a straight 90-degree cut across, you can carefully shave down the edges with a utility knife. A straight cut across on the end will help ensure a nice seal inside the Sharkbite connection. We can then push the PEX into the Sharkbite as far as it'll go. To remove the Sharkbite caps, or any Sharkbite push to connect ends, we can use this little orange Sharkbite removal tool. You just simply place it around the pipe and push it into the Sharkbite, which will push the lip inside and release the Sharkbite's grip. I've also seen an adjustable wrench used if you don't want to buy this tool. If you haven't already, be sure to clean the ends of the copper pipes with a microfiber cloth rag. Now we can connect the couplings. Again, we can just simply push the Sharkbite onto the pipe as far as it'll go. Or we can measure and make a mark 1 inch down to indicate where the end of the Sharkbite should sit so we know for sure it's on all the way.
For the connecting PEX pipes, I positioned the valve in place where I want it to sit and made marks on these boards using the Sharkbite elbows as guides, then measured from the marks down to the couplings. Since the copper pipes sit back a bit and the left one is a bit to the left, I added a 1/4 inch to the measurement of the left PEX and an 1/8 inch to the right. This will help them still have enough length to bend and flex to fit.
I also mark the PEX before shoving it into the coupling to make sure it gets fully inserted. Once connected to the copper pipes, we can mount the valve to the board. The holes for mounting the valve were pretty small, so I used a drill bit the size of the screws I'll be using to make the holes larger. Since the valve body is brass, a drill bit is able to shave it pretty easily. I then used 2.5-inch screws to screw it in place, making sure it's nice and level before fully drilling in each screw. You may need a big extension like me for this part to work around the valve. Now that the supply lines and valve are assembled, the next step is connecting a shower head. You'll want to cut a PEX pipe long enough so that the center of the shower head mount is about 48 inches up from the center of the valve. Then we'll use a Sharkbite drop ear elbow with a female end and push it onto one end of the PEX. There's no difference between different colored PEX, other than to help indicate hot and cold lines, so it doesn't matter what you use for the shower. And with that, you've managed to plumb your own bath and shower system without depleting your wallet. If you're interested, be sure to check out and follow along with my other videos as I remodel this entire shower. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you so much for watching.